everybody, and welcome back to Eggs, the podcast. Today's special guest is Avi Kumar. He's the CEO of Kuware and Invisible PPC. Avi, thank you so much for making time for us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thrilled to have you.
We haven't had a pay-per-click marketing person for a little while, so it'll be interesting to have that conversation. How about you?
Yeah, if you talk to one marketing person, you talk to all of them, I think.
Right. Well, what's exciting about doing it at this time of year, though, is there's a lot of people who are, it's 2025. Depending on when you're listening to the show, this is the first show that we're taping of the year. And it'll be our first published show of 2025. And so, I think there are a lot of people who are, man, I'm going to do that idea I always had, or I'm going to start that business, or I'm going to grow the company this year. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities. So even though you say, you talk to one PPC guy, you talk to all of them, I think that, as we've discovered and having talked to many of them, everybody's got their own perspectives, but times are a-changing too, and things evolve and change over the years. And so it'll be fun to get your take as, kicking off this new year, what are the current trends and strategies and things like that. I think as Mike was starting to allude to, maybe let's start with a little bit of just background on who you are and what you do.
Yes, so Kuware has been around for 16 years, Invisible PPC, 12 years. And this is kind of my third career, if you will. We'll leave the first one aside, but the second one was more of a hardcore engineer working for Intel, Apple, and IBM, those kind of a research, doing microprocessor design and all. And I would have not said I miss it like 2 years back, but now that with AI chips coming in, I want to go and design microprocessors again, So for last 16 years, it has been a lot more marketing, but just because of my background coming from technology side of it, we are kind of a technology marketing company instead of more measurable stuff, the stuff which produces numbers versus if you want to be a big brand and known for just for the name, we're just not the people. But hey, you just want more leads, you want more business, you want to grow, you are pragmatic. That's what I have focused on because that's what I feel more comfortable with. Kuware is a more of a general agency, but recent focus has been a lot more with the legal lawyers and home service businesses. Okay. A lot of home service businesses is where we have ended up focusing in last few years. And Invisible is a white label agency, actually, agency behind the other agencies, right? And that's a high volume business with a lot of customers, a lot of agencies who we do the ads behind the scenes for on their behalf. So those are two businesses, but both of them are very we are advertising heavy, marketing to go with the advertising, that kind of a marketing, not the general marketing. That's what we do, and that's what I've been doing for 16 years. And I think we are getting better. Every 5 years, I feel like I was an idiot 5 years back. So I think we must be getting better.
Yeah, that's good. That's a sign of growth, I think. 5 years. Well, and it's interesting too. I mean, you mentioned it just there, even in your own experience, how much the internet and technology and just our world has changed in just even the last 18 months.
Yep.
In terms of AI as a factor and things like that. Maybe we could just start getting into, sort of what does pay-per-click look like in 2025, or maybe not pay-per-click, but in digital marketing in general. What's the trends?
We can talk general marketing, but pay-per-click and search are going to be impacted immensely with what's going on. And so the search, basically, as we all know, in fact, there is a recent news about how AI was used to build this, the truck, which recently, the truck bomb. And it's actually was not AI. The interesting take there is, we talk about that. It was not the AI. This person actually searched on AI instead of Google. So the news there is that, people are, Google got blamed for, and rightly so, for a lot of bad things which happened, that I found this on Google and did it, right? Now it's, I found it on AI, right?
Yeah.
And that is that's kind of being missed by the news media, that people are already shifting to.
Well, it's a really interesting point. Sorry to cut you off, Avi. But so I just did a 5-hour road trip last night. I was coming back from Boise, Idaho to Salt Lake City, where I live. And I was tired. I didn't sleep well the night before, and I was driving by myself. So to keep myself awake, I started a conversation with ChatGPT and just did their voice prompt or whatever. We talked for 45 minutes on I was trying to do something productive with the time, right? So I was trying to learn about the technology behind AI and how all this works and stuff. So I was just asking questions and getting answers. But we talked for 45 minutes or something while we were on the highway. And not only did it do a great job of keeping me awake, but to your point, it was my search engine. That's
Yes.
who I used to go to, was Google, to
Yeah.
ask those questions. And
Yeah.
now I'm asking, some robot
And
friend of
especially
mine.
with voice, it's a better search engine, right? I
Yep.
don't know if you've, I've been playing with all of these same time. Gemini's voice sucks. With ChatGPT, you feel like with my accented English, with my, even if I stutter, it always gets it right. It gets what I'm saying and answers it back. And in fact, by
Yeah,
the
it's
way,
incredible.
what I've used it is, by the way, on the road trip, actually put it on the camera mode.
Huh.
And you can even talk about what's outside,
Oh, wow.
where you are on the road, because it actually sees it and can talk about things which it is seeing. So yeah, I did this on a road trip, not a road trip. We went to New Orleans, not this New Year's, but with my wife, and she was driving, and I put it up there, and I was talking to it same way you were, and I was also talking about what I'm seeing outside because the video was on. It was looking outside the windscreen and telling me where I am by looking at the road signs.
That's
That what is
crazy.
that place for? So that's amazing. So that becomes a better search engine, right? That's what
Yeah.
we both are alluding to. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific point. Yeah, because even in myself, like I say, I'm using it as a search engine, but I certainly didn't think of it as a replacement of my search engine, But I can say that, unequivocally for us, God, in the last, I don't know, several months, really, if we have a question, we go to ChatGPT first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We very rarely use Google anymore,
Yeah.
actually.
So how does that impact search? Basically, man, Google has been controlling search, right? So what does it mean now to rank your, website high to be found? That was one of the premise of the whole SEO, right? So
Yeah.
it's basically the trend there is that you got to write to rank high on AI.
So
Not it's like a optimization so that AI will pick your content. That's one. So the takeaway I have so far, based on, in fact, there is a blog which I think goes out tomorrow for me, which is I'm saying is what do we expect to happen to SEO in 2025, and the big nugget there is that, hey, right, if somebody ends up on your website, don't write it in a way, and this was generally a good advice, but people, to rank better, they used to ignore it. If they reached your website for whatever reason, they're checking out your business because of the ad or anything, it should be written in such a way they actually derive value from it. They need to get some value out of it. Otherwise, you're wasting time. Don't write content which is, oh, it's going to somehow rank high on SEO. Then other part is it should be valuable enough that AI engine can summarize it and use it, you as an example, right? That's the only SEO left there. Otherwise, it's all about content. So that's one of the things. And then there are many others. So it's going to change, and it's going to change. This year is the change, by the way. It's going to be rapidly changing this year.
so can you
And of course, it'll probably change faster than year. Anything anybody predicts, it happens faster than that, right? So based on that, it'll not be end of the year. It'll be in next 6 months. There'll be
can
major change. So that
can
when that changes, what happens to PPC? The Google search PPC is based on the concept of search there, right? So is it the ad in the AI now? That changes the whole concept. So as a company, which is our primary business is in ads, this is the way I look at it, that there will be always some form of the ad or a sponsorship which you pay for so you can be above everybody else.
so
That's never changing in the world.
are you going directly to ChatGPT and having an ad buy for them? Are you going to each of these different LLMs and trying to buy placement with them directly, or is there like a centralized place that you can go?
Not
Because
yet. There's
okay,
no opportunity to advertise on ChatGPT yet. But what I'm saying is that anything which replaces search eventually has to make money and will have ads.
so at the current moment, you're almost reverting to an SEO first kind of approach to place
Correct.
on the Chat GTP or
Correct.
the LLMs, and you're doing the Google ad buys at the same time to
Correct.
get back with them.
Yeah. And
Um,
and and the social media platforms still work. So when we talk about PPC, we do PPC on Facebook and TikTok, which we don't know where it'll be, but that PPC too, that still works, right? In the sense people are still going there, so you can still show up in front of them. YouTube ads will still work, but the search one will change drastically. I mean, we do Reddit ads now. people search and they go to Reddit, and Reddit is actually summarized by Google on top, right?
Yeah.
And then they have taken a stake in Reddit actually. So so that's changed. So overall, this whole ecosystem will change, and that scares me. And that's where I really like what Bezos's book, and his main philosophy is: don't try to predict what is changing. You will be wrong. Predict what will not change. The whole business of Amazon is built on see what will never change. People will always buy. They will always need stuff. They will need fast service. Those things will be always needed. Now, whatever the platform and technology changes, fine. So the way I look at that is there'll be always ads. Platforms might change. Ads will
Yeah.
remain. And other thing which is becoming changing is the ad copy when you go to social media platforms matters a lot more because of the privacy concerns. The targeting is harder. You cannot get to the people you want to. Digital, the big claim of digital was we'll get the ad exactly in front of your person, right? Unless you have your first party data of your own email list or anything, you can't do that. None of them have that data anymore, right? So what happens then? Then you do a almost like a TV ad. You kind of generally know this will be shown to Austin, to audience in Austin, but if your ad has the right hook, the right person will click.
Yeah.
So the creative part matters even more now. You
Yeah.
got to
Well,
get
and I
that.
worry, about the implications, especially with like AI platforms, for example, ChatGPT is, there's already a lot of ethical concerns around, biases and things like that in those platforms.
Uh-huh.
And so if beyond those, there's an extra layer of advertising where, Johnson and Johnson are paying a certain amount of money to get some kind of, product inserted into the zeitgeist of the GPT, do you end up in a position where it's giving you a biased opinion based on who the highest bidder was versus getting sort of accurate information, And so I think
Absolutely.
that there's some
Yeah.
problems,
So and there's
in
a
there.
money play, and there's always the black hat part. Recently, one of the conversation I had, and actually ran out of my minutes, I had to. So I used multiple accounts all the company accounts I used up their time. This is what I was trying to ask ChatGPT. If I build multiple websites intentionally with misinformation, and your data gets updated, and I build enough of them and they look very authoritative, then does your training get mixed up? Does it get messed up? And the initial answer was like politically correct answer because with ChatGPT you have to push it to get the answer usually when it comes things like this. So no, 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 we have checks and balances. I said, but really, are you making any logical decision beyond your checks and balances with the data? The final answer was basically the summary was no, I'm not making any decision. I just take the data. And if there is a bias in the data, there'll be bias in the answer automatically. So the answer is that you can actually, even now, and especially probably now, later they might get better, you can bias the data. If you have enough things feed and as they ingest all that in, your answers will be biased
Well, and it's
immediately
an
because of
interesting
that.
point that you raised too. I've noticed this in my conversations with ChatGPT that if you kind of, I guess, needle it enough, you can finally get it to kind of go, okay, fine. Because a lot of times what makes me nuts with ChatGPT is I'll ask it a question and then it'll come back and it'll be like, oh, well, you could do this or you could do that or and I'm like, no, 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 no. Tell me what to do.
Yep.
Pretend you're me. Tell me what you would do. Like you're now in a position where you have to make a decision.
Yep.
And it was actually interesting in the conversation I was having with ChatGPT last night, which sounds bizarre. But
every time you
yeah,
say that,
while I was talking to ChatGPT, that was one of the questions I asked. I was like, are you actually thinking? Are you actually, doing any critical thinking on this stuff or whatever? And coming back with an answer, or is this just sort of an algorithmic thing put together? Because I was trying to figure out if, all the logic is written by programmers or if it's sort of starting to create some of its own logic in response to stimulus or data. And yeah, and basically the response was, oh no, I just, we can formulate a little bit of logic based on top of the algorithms that are provided to us, but it's just, we're just regurgitating data.
Yes.
So even though it feels a little human like, or it feels like you're having a conversation with a being, just by virtue of the way that it responds to you, and to your point earlier about the way that it translates voice is insane.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still just kind of a dumb robot. Like it's not really that
Yes.
smart. It's just a smart delivery method.
Yeah. I mean, the one way I like to explain is that if there was a person with no world experience and no morality, and they were suddenly born and became adult, and they have infinite memory, if you dumped in that person all the information, and if you ask for the answer, how will they answer? That's what ChatGPT is doing.
Yeah.
They just take all the things. There is no morality, there is no decision making, there is no work experience to bias it. Of course, there are tests and balances later, and it just kind of takes the data based on the data. I'm going to just answer it, right? So it can be very misleading at times, right? Absolutely.
So
So there's no doubt. So that will impact the SEO in many ways, and the black hat will happen, and things will happen because that's what you know marketers do, right? You're always looking for something or the other to get the advantage till you can, right? So it's going to be that. So there will be issues with that, but in long run, I think it will evolve to, hey, if you really wrote content which is of actual value, and this is what people have been saying, write content, but now it's even more so. Once they reach your website is really your visiting card. You better not be confusing them with mumbo jumbo. Just get them information what they're looking for and get it right. And that's, otherwise you lost your opportunity. All the ad and everything you did, you lost the money. And the platforms for advertising will change, but the general concepts will remain. And the ad copy becomes more and more important now, much more important than it ever was
So
in the past.
I'm a client. I've got a $10,000 a month budget for my ad spend. I make widgets that are consumables that are going to be sold online. How would you take that $10,000 budget and use it in the most effective way with the upcoming technology that AI is, changing the landscape? What would your approach be?
So let's talk about what I'll do today. So today, the basic principles remain. Where are those audience for your budget? Where are most of them? Are they more on Facebook? Are they on Google right now still? Or are they doing AI searches, for example, right? So that'll be the first thing, that where do they live? Or do they live in Reddit? Is it a B2B, which means there are different platforms? Like, is it LinkedIn? Do they live on? That's the first thing we'll find out. And if we don't know, then we'll take two or three and do some test runs on each one of them to see what kind of response you get. Just purely kind of awareness ads. Just get the visuals out there and see how many clicks you get. So find the audience will be the first step. After that, once the audience is found, then you start looking at what message resonates with them. And this is a thing which a lot of agencies, even after many years, get it wrong because they assume Our approach, when I was talking about technical, is our assumption is that we don't know anything. We don't know what they will like or not like. Here is a simple example. If you're working with a customer who's a plumbing customer, hydrojetting. How many consumers know what is hydrojetting? And they'll tell me, oh, you need to do ads for hydrojet. My hydrojet is sitting idle. I need to do hydrojetting. Customers are not searching for hydrojetting. They're just searching for, my sewer is blocked. The fact you use hydrojet, now once I tell you, it's like obvious, right? So what we do is, so in that situation is do multiple different creatives, and that's where AI comes in. AI is quite good at, if you feed, by the way, one thing ChatGPT is really good at is kind of perfect at it as a perfect employee. If you give it a lot of data, your own data to crunch. Here is an individual who has a lot of this background knowledge, but you give it a book to read and give you parts of it the way you want. ChatGPT does amazing job. So when you give it all the client data, hey, this is the situation, this is it. I want different variations of lines I want to be using and trying out. It comes back with amazingly great ideas because they're not out of the blue now anymore. There is bias does not matter because you fed this additional your own bias that I want for plumber, I want for this situation, I want this, and this is what their USP is. You feed all that.
So are
So what
you
we're looking for here is not that perfect ad. We're looking for, did we miss some ideas? And
so
once we have all the ideas, so going back to your question, Mike, we got the audience where it is more. Then we'll say, let's try the message which resonates. So we run the message ads, and if it is a visual platform, then it'll be visual message. And if it is a more of a just a text for platform, then it'll be text messages. And we test those, and then we start finding, oh, they really like it. This message they like more than the others. Again, going to example as a plumbing, we tried, oh, double your business. We thought that's great, man. Every plumber wants to double your business, for example, when we're trying to get plumbers. Then we realized, man, that versus then we said get 600 calls in 60 days. That worked magic. They don't look at business and all. They just want more business, right? They want calls. In fact, our newsletter for that segment is called Ring Ring. It's all about calls. Nothing matters. And we didn't know that when we started talking to them, right? It was just when we tried many of these things That's when we said, oh, this is what they really care. And they really fill the forms and they respond back. So, Mike, in your business, that widget you're making, we will go and do those multiple messaging and see which resonates. Once we know this resonates, then run multiple variants of that. Then I'll run the ads. So now there is, so far, everything I explained, there is nothing new. What AI did was it helped in some creative ideas, and it might change the platform where we do the ads. And there is a completely different thing we have not talked about. In a minute, I want to talk about is one thing in the ads is, in our case, we spend like it's $28 million last year we managed of ads budget. So we spend a lot of money, and it's like with hundreds of clients. So we have a lot of data. No human can ingest all that data and give us any insight that, hey, what could we have done differently with those campaigns? That's where AI works. It's not just ChatGPT. We do some deep learning AI underneath it, but just the AI in general is amazingly good. So what that will do, Mike, is a company which has all that back data, they can mine their data and actually do better ads for you. Does not matter what platform, because they can look at what works, what does not work with the existing data. That part is amazing. That was not possible. So
Just
that
having
big
the
data
A/B
analysis and
test
being
and
able to
having
do it was not possible.
having the LLM actually do your A/B testing is an interesting approach.
Correct,
That's
correct. With the existing data. So
yeah.
that's the new part which we are already doing right now. So in fact, we launched a tool, PPC Reveal and PPC Rush, which does ad analysis for you. And we use it for ourselves. We say, you know what, let's launch it as a SaaS for other customers too, if they want to use it as a competition. That uses our database, but you can connect any of ad account and it analyzes it. That will change. So ad will be better because of that.
So
Right?
you're almost doing like the Rand Fishkin approach with SEO. You're creating your own software platform to integrate your own LLM with your data because you have such a large ad buy that you're leveraging that data to be able to help future clients that would be using your platform. That
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm very excited with the Chinese. I think it's a Deep Blue, or I forget the name. There's a Chinese LLM which is competing directly with ChatGPT, just came out last month or so. They have managed to build very similar for $5 million. The reason I'm interested is at that price point, I can actually run my own LLM completely separate from them and train it completely different, right?
mm-hmm.
So exactly, Mike, you got it. That's what right now I'm using their LLMs still, right? I got to pay them for their API, but there is trained on a lot of stuff. Now I'm trying to retrain it for my stuff only.
Well, and I mean, you mentioned that you're hyper specialized for lawyers and other things like with
Yeah, home service
the
businesses. Yes.
Kuware or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That right there is valuable data as well because if you've got the market kind of figured out, a new onboarding process for a new lawyer is just going to speed it up tremendously for them versus you're coming into, I'd specialize in landscaping versus legal. Now you have to retrain everything based on a whole new demographic. So
Absolutely.
that makes
Absolutely.
sense.
So we call them vertical niches. So we get them ready for each. And then, I mean, our growth path is then we go after next niche. We go after next niche
Mhm.
because
Well, and
that point,
that's
you know,
even going to be easier. There's some news this week from CES about the NVIDIA dropping their new Digits PC. That's basically a AI powered computer that, one $3,000 device can run 200 billion parameters. And then
uh-huh.
you can daisy chain those things together and get to 4
Yeah.
billion or,
Yeah.
400 billion or 800 billion, whatever you need to do so that you can build this AI model. That kind of processing power and the ability to run that model just like in your office versus requiring the resources of the entire internet, the way that we do presently or for your average consumer is going to be, I think, a real breakthrough in AI tech, for companies, especially like companies of the size that you're talking about, your business, where you have some capital that you could invest in things like this and, build your own models. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really going to change. And, I heard some things to your point earlier about, stuff coming faster than you think. A couple years ago, they were talking about AI, really arriving, in 2030 and 2028, and then now it's 2025, and it's like by the end of the year, stuff could be really crazy. And so if you can start doing, use a machine like this Digits machine, or I'm sure there will be competitors as well, you're going to be able to have your own AI, that's relevant to your business specifically. So it's
Correct.
interesting as you're talking about the evolution of your business as a response to AI technology. You're almost, for lack of a better term, SEOing your business. You're optimizing your business to adapt to the new technologies. And by staying ahead of those things, I think you're going to give yourself a competitive advantage where there's a lot of companies that aren't even thinking this way yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who said this recently. Some big internet person, he was asked that where is, if it was internet, where is AI in terms of time? And the answer was AI is where internet was in 94.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good way to look at it, which means if we knew what internet is going to be and if we got in deeper into it, those businesses really flourish, right? They just saw that thing, right? And most of us, we were still trying to do the same thing the way we were doing, right? At still time, right? And to me, it's like, even it's a double whammy, because I was researching, that was the time I was researching internet. I was in grad school publishing papers on daisy, what you're talking about, daisy chaining. That's my research, by the way, on using smaller processors to put them together to make a supercomputer.
Wow.
So we were just focused on that and kind of didn't even think about that. Oh, this internet thing is going to be much bigger than what we are working on the hardware then, right?
Well, and I think that's the thing. One of the conversations I was having with ChatGPT, and yeah, I just keep kicking myself. Like, I need more friends, apparently. But one of the conversations I was having had to do with this. So basically, in our business, we don't necessarily do the media buys, but we do the creative. For we run a marketing agency, design agency. And so we do a lot of the creative stuff. And one of my big concerns as a business owner going into the future is, I don't think we're going to get right to where AI can replace us just yet. I think we still have some high touch human pieces that are going to make us important for at least, the immediate future. But I could see at some point a commoditization of design where AI gets good enough that you don't really need to hire an agency to do this kind of stuff. And so one of the things I've been really proactive with, which is kind of what you're describing, which is trying to stay up on the technology, then figure out how to leverage it in my industry. Even
Yeah.
if, maybe down the road, maybe we're not doing design at all. Rather, we just become, AI pilots that just, have our own language model for developing resources. But
Correct. And for the designers, by the way, the concept is this, that if a person or a team is very good at Photoshop and video editing, that's gone. But if they're good at coming up concepts which need to be implemented, that's never going away.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
never going away, right? So somebody has to come up with this kernel of idea. I want to go. Yeah, I
Well,
might give you 5 ideas, but what does it mean? So if you are just a story writer who writes, you're good with words, but doesn't come up with the great ideas to write the story, then you're gone. But if you come up with the, innovative ideas, yeah, story somebody AI can write for you. But
yeah.
it's your concept where it is going. So I think that part of design will never go away.
Yeah.
Right?
And so that's one of those kinds of things that we're trying to figure out how to, comport with the future, which is, what do we do as an agency? Do we keep pursuing traditional clients? And I think in some industries that are kind of slow moving, we probably have a little more runway than others.
Yep.
But I think that there's a real opportunity to be innovative, to lead in the space, to, really scale into a company that, not only uses and leverages AI tools on our end, but also can teach our customers about it and how they can leverage it in their business, and things like that, and position ourselves as a company that's, very AI forward, even though I generally advocate for not saying AI all the time.
Yeah.
So just because I feel like it's becoming one of those buzzy terms that's everywhere.
Yeah. By the way, one business which I feel is needed, and I'm sure there are enough thinking about it, just helping businesses decide what AI tools and what they should do now.
Yeah.
Things are changing so rapidly, nobody can keep up with everything, right?
Yeah. Well, and you hit on a good point earlier too, which is that, it kind of came out of our discussion, which is that, AI is deceptively good in that you start having a conversation with ChatGPT or whatever, you feel like it understands what you're asking it. And it seems like the output you get from it is useful and valuable. But, if you're not really giving it a critical eye, or maybe you're not an expert in the realm that you're asking, there's still room to be getting like weird answers that actually aren't that good, but sound good.
Yeah.
And so I think for a lot of businesses, who maybe aren't that heavily invested, but they're just going, oh, I don't need to hire a marketing company anymore. I'll just ask ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. And they'll give you the answer.
And they'll get an answer and it'll feel okay. And, they'll run with it. But, it may not really, to your point earlier about ingesting your own data, it may not really understand the strategy of the company or understand what you're trying to do for business growth, or, understand how you win new clients, or, whatever it is. And so I think there's a lot of room for people to go sideways on AI too, which is they just start using it on their own with no education and, hand over their trust wholly to AI platforms, only to find out later that they were actually just getting bum information.
Yeah. Here's a recent example. I had a YouTube video, and I have some AI software, I think, which basically summarizes videos. There are many through a plugin. And I thought, you know what? I'll just do it with ChatGPT now that it has connection. So I gave it a video. The video was 6 things to do to grow your audience, I think, something like that. It was a 10-minute video. I gave it as input, and I said, hey, can you summarize this for me in a few points? Because I'd already watched the video. I just wanted the points so I can save it somewhere to remember, right? It summarized. When I looked at it, I said, this doesn't match the video at all. Mm-hmm. Then I asked it, hey, did you summarize the video? Say, yeah. I said, did you actually listen to the video? Said, no, I don't have that capability. I said, how did you summarize it then? I looked at the title, and based on that, I came up with what it must be, the 6 things to go.
That's crazy.
Right? So it was like completely misleading, not even telling me that, hey, didn't even listen to the video.
Yeah,
right?
And if you had just taken that advice.
In this case, I had actually listened. So I knew that's not what it is. So that kind of a thing can happen, right? Very, very easily.
What scares me
if you don't know. So
about
if you're not expert or you don't know what you're talking about, right?
What scares me about it is like everyone's using AI to generate content, right? So that their websites are getting updated by AI, and AI is scanning that content to get results. So it almost seems like a feedback loop of potential problems that if it's input wrong the first time, it's going to get reread and redone 1,000 times, almost like that game of telephone in 3rd grade, like Susie says this, Steve says this. By the time it gets to the end, it's a completely different word, but times a million.
So Mike, I think that's a legit worry, but I think it's not that big of a problem, because what they are talking about in the AI is that it's already ingested the internet. Everything which was there is already there. Now the problem is they don't have enough data. There's nothing more to ingest, basically.
Yeah.
So the answer supposedly is video, because even a 4-year-old has better knowledge than AI when it comes to understanding the world around, right? That's the number I've heard. So, and ingesting the video, which means there might be a licensing deal here with Google to license the whole YouTube and ingest it. Because in video, there is a additional information, like everything in the corner, etc. It can start understanding and making sense of it, right? So, and then I'm thinking is, this part is completely from wherever I read or whatever. The next part I'm thinking is, maybe they will have these vans going around like Google with the video. All it is doing is capturing the world to feed the data, because now the learning will be fast. That's how we learn, right? As humans, we walk on the street, we fall and we see something. And as we grow up, we go to a store and we learn. So there is still a lot to learn data-wise about the world.
Well, and it's interesting too, because some platforms are a little better about this than others. So like Google Gemini, for example, you can give it a YouTube video link. I suspect it's still just like looking at a transcript or something. I don't think it's actually watching the video, but you can ask it to summarize a video, and it's been relatively good. But I'm sure it's based on the text, though. I don't think it's actually watching the video.
It does. Finally, the ChatGPT said, copy and paste the transcript for me, and then I'll summarize for you.
Yeah.
So they can do that.
But the point was, it didn't tell you. So if you weren't paying attention, you'd have been tricked.
What is going on? I have multiple instances of that. I asked, I said, hey, can you summarize Kuware.com for me and TrueBlueCollar.com for me, our websites too, for 2 brands? And because I was comparing with some competition. And it summarized Kuware.com very well and TrueBlueCollar reasonably well, but not as good. Then I said, and Kuware one was extremely good to the level. There's a video with a transcript where I'm saying how businesses should grow. And it had those words in there, my words. So I know it was not random. And then I said, TrueBlueCollar is not correct. And this is on the voice, by the way, right? So voice doesn't have the internet connection directly, right? Right now they added the other connection, but not on the voice. Then I asked it, hey, are you going to the internet? And said, no. No, I cannot go to the internet. I said, if you cannot go to the internet, how did you summarize Kuware.com and TrueBlueCollar.com? Oh, no, just based on my knowledge. I said, no, it's not possible. that your knowledge cannot know what I have said in a video. So then I concluded Kuware site has existed for 16 years. So it's in its database. We have had enough traffic and things. True Blue Collar was made 16 months back. It was not in its database, so it was making it up,
Yeah.
right? So these kind of a detailed things, if you're trying to do something, if you don't know what you're doing, you'll get it very wrong.
Well, especially if
right?
you're basing business decisions on that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's where we still have some runway as professionals. Still like.
Well, so Avi, let's shift gears a little bit. One of the things I wanted to try and talk to you about, I mean, I think we cracked marketing, and I guess the big answer is we don't know. But the next thing, or one of the other things that you're kind of a specialist in that I think is particularly relevant, and maybe I'm being selfish here because this is something I struggle with and that I need support with right away, which is good quality lead generation. So there's a myriad of tools, that go and scrub Instagram and steal email addresses and do all these kinds of things. So there's all these kind of shady practices. Then there's longer form versions of doing this where you create a sales funnel and maybe a white paper at the end or something to create email or collect email addresses, for example. But can you talk about sort of the state of lead generation, how a person might go from having no audience to creating one, maybe somewhat rapidly, and or basically what a sustainable strategy for lead generation would be?
So the audience building strategy, the one you said, the traditional, the long one, I still subscribe to that, which is basically do the funnel. This is my reason, Brian. Unless your business is a hobby, you want a sustainable, repeatable system, not a trick. Because I've been doing this for 16 years. So we found this magic trick and suddenly everything works, right? And I'm selling on Amazon, 20,000. It was like for a month, it was like $15,000 to $20,000 a day of Adobe and Windows, which I got from China and shipped to US and selling it, right? So it worked really great for short duration, right? It's great, a lot of money, and then eventually you find out there's some fake. You got to stop because there's a problem there, right? It does not build a sustainable business. So over the years, what I've realized is that thing you should spend time, decent amount of time, is what is the way I will continuously get more customers, and it's repeatable. You repeat and rinse and it'll work continuously. And what will it cost me? It's not a hobby, it's a business. So I know it'll cost me. So building that funnel properly is the way. Now you could do few trick things initially to get. So if you're building a email list in the beginning, yeah, you could do few things here and there and get few thousand. You could even buy few, right, and get it going in the beginning. So that'll probably make you. I mean, this is what I call, there's a feel good matrix thing, that once you have a list and people are 24% or higher are opening, you feel like, oh yeah, my newsletter is going somewhere, right? You need that also, so you can do that anyway. But after that, you got to have, this is what we tell client, is that how many per month are we going to be adding continuously to your list to market to? And you might not set that as a target, but you try it and find the system to get you those. And in our case, for Invisible PPC, for example, it's 500 a month. We add 500 a month to our list, these are agencies basically. So that's the number we go after, and we build the whole funnel very traditional way, Ryan. There, the only non-traditional thing is what we are giving them keeps changing, and we keep coming up with the better things to give, for which they will exchange the email address with us, right? And other thing which we have started going away from is not go peripheral. We used to do, oh, somebody who's interested in downloading something like this probably eventually will be interested in this. It's a get the eventual out, get the people who really need our thing, and that's the reason they will download it, right? And we, because that the long term thing, it was very difficult to track when they convert, and it's becoming harder and harder to track when they converted. So you want that little bit to be a shorter term, which means it needs to be something which is relevant to them now. And other aspect which working with Facebook a lot on the ads, we noticed is that anything you knew, any data 6 months back, how the audience was behaving, is useless. Don't look at anything, don't go more than 3 months back. So if you felt like, oh, I was running this and 6 months back this worked, you just forget. Don't have any history. Don't rely on anything, because the audience behavior itself changes so rapidly now on these platforms that you will be targeting wrong people if you keep relying on the history. So don't go more than 90 days on anything, right? And so everything like changing so rapidly. So that window has to get shorter, and it has to be much more in their face. This is what we do. This is what you want or not, versus things, right? So in your case, the design. Sometimes we have design conflict with when working with the design people. Hey, you got a very cool design, but does it convey the message immediately or not? People have microseconds. If that design does not get the message across quickly and it does not resonate with them emotionally and all, it's wasted. Doesn't matter how cool, because I have enough, like a lot of case studies of, man, there was so much hidden in that image or in that message. It is so clever. So we are too clever for our own good, because nobody has the time to get the clever. Only small percentage gets it. So they need to get it immediately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the extreme I talk about is, if you're selling a soap, first line should be, this cleans really well. Okay. Simple as that. Just get that out first, immediately. Then you can say, oh, it smells great and does this. If they don't get that, they're going to just skip.
Yeah. Well, one thing you kind of touched on that I think is really important to try and recognize too is the sort of the vanity metric versus the reality, right? So I think a lot of people want to have a big list or a big number, and the idea is that the more the merrier, and we'll convert some proportion of those people. And I know, like in direct mail, it used to be something like 2% or something would convert. So if you had 100,000 list, you'd get 2% of those. If you had a million list, you get 2%. So you could start to leverage up, but it required a giant list to get even a small conversion. But I think there's another version of this, which is more like the Kevin Kelly 1,000 True Fans idea, which is, a really effective list of highly motivated people, especially maybe for like a niche business, to use your example of soaps, maybe you do handcrafted soaps or something and you have fans, people who really love your brand. You don't need a million people on your list, so to your point about for your own business, you just need 500 new leads a month. You don't need 100,000 people. You don't need to scrub the internet and steal email addresses or do any of that stuff. What you need are 1,000 people who actually care about your business. And so I think that
that's exactly right. Completely agree with you. But I'll give you this technique which everybody should use to do with the list. So what we do with the list is, once we have the list, there'll be some who have not opened your email in 90 days. So you have two choices: completely discard them, which is completely fine if you don't have other tools. I highly recommend just do that, because what will that do is, your delivery rate goes up when mail systems see that because if you drop all those, your open rate will double, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not double, depending on how many you dropped, right? So if you dropped half of them, it freaking doubles, right? Because they were never opening, right? So the remaining they're opening. So either you can discard. So what I'm going with is that, even if you are growing the list, you got to prune it, right? So either drop, but if you have the tools, this is what you do: take that list, go to a completely different domain, a subdomain name or something of yours, and send them a message through them, and wake them up and ask them, hey, do you really want to be here or not? Because it might be it's already going to their spam, and all of these guys are getting spam. That's not the reason there. So you got to do that. And even after that, if they don't you cannot reawaken them, get rid of them. So that basically says is that, for a business, even with the growth, like, there is a point after which you don't need to continuously grow exponentially that list. Instead, you want the good numbers to be there, and with a good conversion rate on that list, you are continuously maintaining, say that 3,000. Those are always good. They need to be the good ones, because some fans change, things change, and you keep pruning, and keep testing them and reminding them, reawaken them. And that's the one of the things which we
Well,
do.
and I think that's good advice. I've worked for clients in the past that have, really big lists, or lists that were created from, maybe personal contacts, things that were really valuable at one point. But, we load that into the system. We're getting no opens. We're getting no anything else. And, and it's become clear that, okay, well, this list was assembled over 10 years. A lot of these people have moved on, or they work at different companies now, or they whatever, so much of that data is useless. But had they kept that up, had they been pruning it the whole time, I think it just demonstrates that it's more of a quality than a quantity kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and I think
It's
for
in
so
line
many
with what
people, it's just about, oh yeah, no, I've got a million people on my list. So we just send out this giant, email
Yeah.
every year. But
Well,
Absolutely.
and if you think of, the actual act of pruning a tree, when you take a branch that's going in the direction you don't want and you actually clip that branch off, the resources that were going to that branch are now going to the rest of the tree to help it grow faster and in the direction that you want it to go. Um, So,
and it's a great point for like people who are using, maybe consumer centric type softwares like MailChimp and things like
which
this.
has a limit. You're
I mean,
paying
those
for
kinds
them.
of things. Yeah, you pay for the number of people on your list. So if 90% of your people aren't responding to you, you're just paying money for 90% of people.
Yeah.
So it's
And
actually better to have a smaller but more effective list than it is to have a bigger list.
yeah, here's the other simple trick, by the way, which works if you're giving away something. Instead of asking them to link, and especially if you have a 2,000-3,000 list in which you manageable, instead of trying to go automation, you can tell people just respond back to me with a hi or something, and I'll put you in a drop. It takes a little bit more effort to find those people, but if it's a smaller list, and even with 10,000 you can do it. It's not that difficult with software. They will respond. People will, because that's easier for them to fill a form, right?
so
And then you're suddenly
let me ask
quality
you.
goes up.
Let me ask you about this because this has happened to me twice recently. Um, I'm a I work in audio. I work with a lot of DJs and a lot of people that make custom tracks that, a new song comes out, they'll make their custom kind of spin off of what it is. And then they'll in Instagram, because that's really the only social network platform that I use. They say comment banger or comment this is great, and I'll send you a link. And
Yes.
the instant you type in this is great, I get an email in my inbox saying, "Hey, click here to get your track." How does that integration work? How does just because I've never paid for something like that or had a third party app where I've needed to do that, how does
Yeah.
Instagram, just by making a comment, know to add my email list to this guy's campaign and to send that
So,
track to me?
so it is a Mike. It's a some kind of automation. There are multiple tools which will do automation. Which in even Instagram they run over Instagram, right? We have because Instagram case we don't have a tool like this, but we have on LinkedIn where somebody responds. We actually are looking at the screen as you as a user, and we can actually catch which user it is and then send it to you.
Yeah.
That's what they're using basically,
Hmm.
right? Because once you have volume, that's what you have to do,
Another
right? You
thing
can't
I
then.
wanted to ask you, Avi, about just sort of newsletters in general. And, I know you have a pretty comprehensive newsletter or multiple newsletters across different genres. So you might be a good guy to talk to about this. What's the strategy if you're using newsletters as a lead generation tool or as maybe a new business tool altogether? Um, in Is there any value, I guess, in staying with a specific platform? So for example, I know that LinkedIn has rolled out sort of recently, it's been maybe a year now, but they rolled out their newsletter tool, and I believe that there's still, I don't know if it's true or not, but I had heard at some point that there was some benefit to using that tool and that they'd sort of promote you in the algorithm or something for using their new feature.
Yeah.
But let's say that you have I don't know, a Substack, or you're publishing on Medium or whatever.
So
Does it make sense to narrow down and like choose a platform, or is it better to put that on numerous platforms and sort of collect leads from multiple sources?
So if you're going to be just publishing, publish on multiple platforms. But if it is when it comes to actually doing newsletter, etc., do it because you first party data value has become very very high, which means you want to control your list. So if you do a newsletter on LinkedIn, there is no way for you to send email to everybody who did something on your newsletter. What newsletter when you publish a newsletter, they allow you to send requests to so many people, please subscribe. So and there are automation tools which do that too on LinkedIn. uh, so it does help that way, but your list newsletter should be on your platform. When I say yours, any email platform where you have complete control on the email list, because that's the most valuable data. Does not matter how technology changes, that's yours, right? That's chat gpt launches its own ads, or whosoever does it, they will always ask, hey, do you have your own list which you want to target and you want to look alike? That's the most valuable thing you have. So that you should not do on other platforms. Medium is the same thing. If you publish on Medium, yes, it's you could publish there also, but many of them require you should not publish everywhere else. Versus if you publish on, even if it is a random named, poorly named website of yours, you're building audience on your website. That's better than building for Medium, right? So that's really what it comes down to, that you want as much as possible to keep to you. And it seems hard because your unknown website, your unknown newsletter. So why will people go? But it builds up slowly, right? And consistency. Other thing is, there are two forms to think about. One is a long form, very long form newsletter, which is very informative, and where Hustle takes that. approach and they sold it to HubSpot. That's what those guys did. It's like a amazing news report. If you cannot do that, and most people cannot do that, that requires research and everything. Then the other side is keep it very small, and with bullets. And we found in case of True Blue Color, I mean, it's kind of we came out this with the we do every day there's a micro video. So our newsletter is nothing else, but in that situation, it's just summary of those one-liners for each video. Hey, you want to do this? Watch this. So every week we just are sending out one-line summary. That makes making the newsletter easy, and that one has the high open rate. We're not being creative because we already were creative when we created those videos, right? Mm-hmm. So why create one more newsletter? So the simpler, like that bullet forms, the shorter is great. And there are newsletters now which they say, 30-second read, because they give the point so quickly, and just people just don't have the bandwidth. And the other thing is, the big reason the newsletters exist is not necessarily they will read. You want them not to unsubscribe. So if you give them small, they read few times, they're going to say, yeah, this one has good, I don't have time, but I'm going to keep it, right? I'm going to read it because it's quick. So you want to stay in their inbox. That's the more important part than anything else, right? Because they know you. Then when you even do an ad, even if you have to get them back through ad or other way, or even if you have to spend money to get them back or reach out to them, they were in your inbox, and you have them as a client at that point, right? So that's a very, very important part of the newsletters. So anything and everything with the client relationship, email, phone numbers, etc., which you can collect as a first party data, always choose that over some other platform.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Just having the control. When you actually go to use that data and create that list, is there a platform that you prefer over another, like MailChimp or something like that?
So we have a year back we transitioned to Go High Level. Go High Level is the way I like to describe is it's a mile wide, inch deep. This is from my coworker Tim. I really like that way to describe it. It has everything in there, but most people, most smaller companies, you just need the everything. You don't need the depth, right? You kind of need the text messaging. You need Facebook Messenger messaging and everything. It's all there, standard included, right? But it is not the best of any of those. But most people don't need the best of it. I just want to be able to, I want to have my AI chatbot working on my website without doing too much work. They already have it. You don't have to go to a third party to do. So that's their approach, and they have enough funding. I think they'll keep going deeper slowly. And so that's what we've been using for all our smaller clients. That's where we work with. We ourselves have used HubSpot Active Campaign because our lists were bigger and all. But now we kind of said, even though it's more basic, but we use it for so many clients, we should use it for ourselves also. So it's a little painful for bigger, if you have bigger lists and all, but it does the job. It's not as deep, but it has everything. So Go High Level is a good one, and it for agencies works out really well. Is you just get one full agency license and you can create any number of sub accounts, any number. So their model is such that you just resell whatever you want. We are not using it for resell. We're just using it to set it up, and the clients can have access for free because it just allows us to manage their data separately.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. So one last thing I want to get into here in the last few minutes is I thought it was kind of interesting. We try and be clever around here and try and just have a natural conversation. But there was a question that came over, a sample question that came over on your one sheet when we were doing some initial research. And I thought it might be a relevant thing to talk to for people who are maybe trying to spin up a new business this year, but maybe don't have all the skills and expertise. And so there was this question on here that is how to grow an agency without having technical expertise or skills. And I wonder if we could maybe talk about that a little bit. I think about people who are maybe a little older. I guess this could apply to younger people too, but I'm just thinking maybe they've got some expertise, they've developed a life or whatever, but they don't necessarily know how to turn that into something they can do for a living. And I happen to know a lot of people right now who have been laid off from jobs or who have lost positions recently, and they're having a really hard time replacing work. And so I tend to be sort of entrepreneurial, so I always encourage them to go start something. But I wonder if we couldn't just have kind of a brief conversation here in maybe the last 5 minutes or so about how people could get started, either growing an agency or some other type of business with limited tech expertise.
So marketing has, in general, very low barrier to entry. In fact, even lower than realtors in some ways, right? So realtors at least have to go through some training and license. So anybody can say, okay, I've got a marketing agency. So which is good and bad. The good is you can truly get in, right? The bad is you get some very bad marketers. How do you avoid that bad and still build an agency? So any marketing agency, the big part of it is getting clients and dealing with clients. So if you come from any business, you know how to deal with people, you can build an agency. That's a major part. Like any other business, it's like you will be dealing with people and this thing. Now the challenge you'll face is I can talk to people. I can tell them, hey, I can do marketing for you, but I don't know how to do marketing. So how do you do that? That is where you go to companies like white label service providers. And this question is, by the way, on all fairness, it's helps us, right? That's what Invisible PPC does, right? And but it is actually it is a symbiotic thing in the sense we have a lot of agencies who started with Invisible PPC. They reached 40, 50 clients, then they did everything in house. And we are happy to. In fact, some of them hire us as consultants to help them hire people to build their agency, which is fine. That's not our primary business. They'll say, oh, you guys know manage, so can you do that? So the idea is, you go, so if you are as you pointed out that, hey, you change career and it is a point where you don't want to work that many hours or you want to grow slowly and don't want to invest. And that's the other thing, right? Are you going to invest? Do you have a lot of money to invest? If not, then you go and start looking at local businesses, for example. I mean, you could start with your dentist and ask them, hey, is somebody doing marketing for you? Are you running ads? I didn't see any ads from you. And then you work with a company like Invisible PPC, and we are not the only one. There are others, right? We like to think we are the best. Cannot prove it, but we are doing well, so we must be doing okay, right? There's no way to prove it beyond that hey, we like our own agency. So you work with a company like that and let them provide all the data, including we will be able to provide you what will it cost to get them a lead, because we are running so many dentist ads, so many plumber ads. We can give you exactly how much it will cost. Most marketing agencies, when you're starting and then they do their own, they cannot provide that, right? So you leverage experts who know how to run ads, for example, people who know how to build websites, and you become the kind of a general manager, if you will, if you're thinking in the contract business terms, right? And you manage the relationship, and you charge whatever you want for your services, right? Our clients charge somewhere 2 to 3x of what they pay us. And our main agency charges 3x or 4x of our white label services, by the way. So that's why many times we run into end client coming to white label and say, hey, your price is low because it's published on the website. It says, sorry, unless you are agency, your end client, we cannot give you that because there is a middle person who manages the relationship. We don't do that, right? So that's the idea, Ryan, that when you're building a marketing agency, find others who will do the fulfillment for you.
Yeah. Well,
my recommendation is you could do this with Upwork and all, but if you're serious about business, get actually a business agency to do it for you. Because in Upwork, you're dependent on a person and they get something bigger, and then you have a client who's very upset. When you work with a underneath white label agency, they have a team. They will never have a situation, oh, I cannot fulfill this now, right? So that's the way, without knowing and quickly building. And as you grow, when you get 10 clients, 50 clients, then you feel like I can hire people and I can take that margin also, which I'm paying the white label agency. I can bring that in-house now. And that's a great way to. Or many of them have made this a lifestyle business where they live in Europe. They manage their clients from Europe and from Thailand and others. And we just manage their clients behind the scenes. Yeah. And which is fine. We never meet the clients. It's white label. They manage that. So that's the business, which is relatively easy to build. You need people skills, be able to talk to them, and you kind of deal with the relationship.
Well, and it's funny because I hadn't really thought about it that way, but really that's kind of what our agency does too, is we're kind of a white label bolt on for ad agencies and people like that who need to scale quickly. And so if they need to scale up or scale down or whatever, they can just bring us on and off as needed to expand their bandwidth. And so, but we end up doing everything sort of white label too. And that was by design, in that our goal was to be a little bit more hands-on or integrated than a traditional agency, right? We need to be as easy to work with as if we're down the hall, versus, maybe an agency where you have to send an email out to your project manager, and maybe you'll hear back this week and maybe you won't, So we tried to strive for a closer level of integration. So I like that idea of sort of white label. I just hadn't thought of it as a way that you could almost grow your own business and use people as a white label or provide service white label that way.
Yeah. So Ryan, so that part, what you're talking about, high touch versus low touch. So that's how Invisible does. We are high touch. Even though we don't talk to your client, we are available within that day, working day, we'll respond. So our approach is like, hey, make it so as if you really have an employee. And that way it's not lost. And we found initially it was like the question of this cost wise, how will we manage? But we kind of realized that no, it's actually, it settles. A new customer asks a lot of questions, so there is expense. But after that, they realize the system, and then it works out fine. So it does. And the ones who are serious about creating business, they know they don't have time. They're creating business, so they don't have time to just keep asking and bothering us as a white label agency, right? That's always a concern. You get somebody, a newbie, who's asking too many questions, right? And you're spending that time answering those. So,
well, thank you so much for this conversation. There's been a lot of intriguing routes that we've taken. We're kind of at that point. Do you want to tell people how they can reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So kuware.com or invisibleppc.com, any of those sites is the best way to, get hold of people in my team or me. I'm Avi at that domain name, both of the domain names. So if you want to reach out to me directly, that is great. And by the way, you guys are really easy to talk to make the conversation easy. So
well, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Avi. We'll take it as a compliment. We love it. So thank you so much, Avi, for making time for us. This has been an awesome conversation. And I appreciate your honesty too, and just your candor around kind of what is happening in the world of PPC. I mean, I think a lot of PPC guys, would probably stick a little bit closer to the script and be like, oh, well, this is how we do business and we'll always do business this way. But I think being honest about it and understanding that, we are in an interesting time for online marketing and things like that. And that, that you guys are trying to really work actively to try and stay either ahead of the curve or at least on the edge, I think is really enlightening. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, welcome.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to you, Avi, for your time, Mike, and to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. And we'll see you guys next time.